These hills are Kazane Brown's ancestral home. She's a traditional owner of the country that stretches across the lower Blue Mountains.
There's a lot of art sites all along the river that follow the Dreamtime story. So what's left is really important to us and we don't want to lose it.
The hills also feed Sydney's primary water supply at Warragamba Dam.
After 12 years construction work at a cost of more than $70 million, the Warragamba Dam was opened on this day in 1960.
But 1960 was a bad year for the traditional owners.
My mother was the last of us who lived in the valley and she left as a child. She remembers the day they left. She remembers them packing up and putting everything in the car. The first time the wall went up, they had estimated that they destroyed 80% of what was there.
Today, Kazane worries that history is about to repeat itself. The New South Wales government is planning to raise the dam wall to stop floodwaters from reaching Western Sydney, but that would send any floods upstream.
We started off with 4 big art sites. 2 of them were flooded when the first dam wall went up, and if it's extended, the remaining 2 will be flooded as well. And one of them has over 100 paintings and drawings and handprints on the walls of the rock.
Now she's joined forces with other locals worried about the dam's impact on the Blue Mountains World Heritage Area.
To protect this place forever was the commitment the Howard government made to the World Heritage Committee 20 years ago in 2000. The rivers and the streams and the grasslands upstream of this dam wall are some of the most pristine areas I've ever been to.
Last year, UNESCO said the plan to raise the dam wall was incompatible with that World Heritage listing. And this year, a leaked report from the Federal Environment Department listed concern for an unacceptable impact to Aboriginal cultural heritage values. At risk are the rock art, rock shelters, burial sites and scarred trees.
They estimate that it'll be over 1,200 sites destroyed if the dam wall goes up, and that's only estimated from a quarter of the area, so it's quite possible that there's a lot more in there.
Fear of huge floods is driving the project, like the 2011 flood that devastated Brisbane, or even bigger.
This business over here is one of the many that have been flooded. It's like a mini aquarium in there.
134,000 people live on the floodplain stretching from Penrith to Windsor, a population that's set to double by 2050. A 2016 report from Infrastructure New South Wales said these suburbs had the highest single flood risk in New South Wales, if not Australia. It said the best way to protect them is by raising the dam wall.
It's an area of considerable risk as far as floods are concerned.
As a former Deputy Director of the New South Wales State Emergency Service, Chaz Keys knows floods.
There may be 1 or 2 rivers in which there are more people living on the floodplain, but there'll be very few with such massive flood reaches as on the Hawkesbury from Penrith down to Windsor. The risk is heightened over and above what happens on most of the rivers of Australia.
In a major flood, water could reach 6 stories deep in some suburbs.
There's an awful lot of people within that 19 metres of depth up to the worst flood ever recorded, and you can get worse than that. Our flood record is short, and it's absolutely possible to get bigger floods than have been seen.
Raising the dam wall would cost more than $700 million. But experts say all that money and effort won't solve anything because there are multiple rivers here that can flood, and just one of them is controlled by the dam.
The Warragamba River is only one river in a very complex river system that makes up the Hawkesbury Nepean floodplain. We know that up to 70% of past floods have in fact come from other rivers.
We're going to spend a phenomenal amount on raising this dam and need to spend more on evacuation routes the more people we put in there. It's a serious problem, born of the fact that the government's got a preferred mitigation measure, the raising of the dam. It's a lot of money to spend to not solve a serious problem.
One of the biggest champions for the project is the New South Wales Minister for Western Sydney, Stuart Ayres.
There's no doubt that raising the dam wall will have an impact when a flood takes place. The whole purpose of raising Warragamba Dam wall to create flood mitigation is to stop the water from coming downstream into people's living rooms, their homes, their businesses and their communities.
Experts are telling us that the designs that you have for raising Warragamba Dam wall will not protect against significant flooding and that such floods could lead to a loss of life. Is your government prepared for that? Because at the moment, your own government's planning shows that the population there is going to double in the next 30 years.
So the population right across Western Sydney is going to continue to grow. That's why investing in flood mitigation capacity at Warragamba Dam is so critical. Many of these locations are historic locations. Populations put in place 50, 100, sometimes 200 years ago. So I think we can still grow in Western Sydney, but the areas that do have high flood risk exposure, they do deserve to be protected.
But the traditional owners say their cultural heritage deserves protection too.
I want my kids to know about their culture and I want my grandkids to know. And it's not just this place. I think as a country that we should be looking after more Indigenous heritage. We destroy too much.
It just feels like such a wicked problem, this one, because, you know, on the one hand, you've got the inevitable increase of population and urban sprawl that goes with it. You need to protect people.
And the need for affordable housing in a city as expensive as Sydney.
Absolutely, which is, you know, cornered off in so many ways by the mountains. But at the same time, you want to protect these sites. You know, commitments have been made to protect these sites. It's the genuine wicked problem.